Hi there, I'm Dillian Whyte and welcome to the latest edition of SecondsOut ReFLEXions here every Monday, 4:30pm. So, not loads to talk about just yet, as boxing is still very much in the infancy of coming back from the coronavirus-induced shutdown. But one thing that did catch the eye over the last week was some speculation and promotion, marketing around a possible crossover fight between MMA or UFC heavyweight Francis Ngannou and Dillian Whyte, who's waited seemingly about 20 years for a world title shot from the WBC. I exaggerate, although not by much, probably. And at first it just seemed like the latest round of silly season that has seen us look at a possible Mike Tyson comeback in some form or another. O'Hara Davis and Anthony Fowler crossing weight divides to take each other on. But Eddie Hearn has given it more credibility, saying that while Whyte is still scheduled to fight Alexander Povetkin next, as was scheduled before the shutdown, it's a real chance it could happen either this year or next year, and he's going to enter into talks with UFC head honcho Dana White to see if it can be made. There was an press conference filmed, that's all the rage at the moment, of course, but apparently some complaint on the part of Ngannou's team has meant that it will now not be released and people won't be able to watch it. I don't know if that's permanent or if it just stopped it being released at the time it was due to go out. Maybe they've asked for some particular edits, I'm not sure. But they've certainly scuppered it going out on the agreed date, so we don't know what went down there. But the fact that they've scheduled an press conference is A, indicative of the fact that no one's got a lot to do at the moment, but B, also that maybe there's a bit more to this fight actually happening than some of the other kind of spurious fights between MMA fighters and boxers that have been talked about in the past. To me, I've got to say, it doesn't do a lot for me. Unless we're going to see someone who used to be a boxer and then, got experience in MMA, got some good wins on the way up and got to a certain level, and I understand why that's largely impossible because there's just not enough time to have two full careers in one person's physical prime. What's the point? Because if, just using Whyte and Ngannou as an example, if they clash in a cage, Whyte's had a bit of kickboxing experience. He's not really ever fought in an octagon or done kind of all-in mixed martial arts. No real kind of grappling background that I'm aware of, or BJJ. Ngannou is obviously a striker. He's not, known as this kind of wrestling genius or anything like that. So it is kind of in Whyte's wheelhouse. But striking for MMA is very different to striking for boxing, not just because you can use your feet as well, which Whyte does have some experience of, but also just the way you use takedowns to set up strikes and vice versa, and myriad other ways that people more versed in MMA can tell you a lot better than I can. But you would back Ngannou, by a mile in the octagon. He's only lost 3 fights, one really early in his career, the other 2 to top UFC heavyweights in Derek Lewis and current UFC heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic. Now, the Miocic fight, he got absolutely brutalised, and grappling was part of that. So it wasn't just that he was outstruck or out-hit, although he was in the latter half of that 5-rounder. Derek Lewis fight, I wouldn't recommend going to watch it. The most tedious MMA fight I've ever seen, I think. I haven't seen that many, though, to be fair. But yeah, just a really boring fight. And Ngannou, it seemed like the occasion got to him a little bit in that one, kind of inexplicable performance. But then if you look at it in a boxing ring, 10 rounds, 12 rounds, whatever it might be, Dillian Whyte's a world-class heavyweight. He's probably got a better resume than some of the world champions at the moment, or is A2. He's probably got a better resume than at least one, if not both, of the world champions at the moment. He's beaten a lot of top 10, top 15 contenders, looking to go in with another one in Povetkin next up. A lot of people might want to kind of paint him as a all kind of brawn kind of guy, but he's developed really well under Mark Tibbs since he started. He's quite a late starter. Developed really well. He's got a good boxing brain, good jab now, good body puncher as well, and kind of a real well-rounded boxer puncher these days, and sets quite a good pace for a heavyweight as well. Ngannou would have zero chance really in a proper boxing match, except maybe if he lands one of his huge haymakers on Whyte's chin. But then Whyte's got a good jaw. He's been down, yeah, but he's got back up, and only Anthony Joshua truly got him out of there, and there's no shame in that. And that was an earlier version of Whyte as well, who came into the fight carrying an injury. So it's very hard to see either man beating the other in their respective wheelhouses, if you like. Eddie Hearn said something like, when he was kind of bursting with exuberance about the possibility, is it going to be in a cage? Is it going to be in the ring? Are we going to do a round of each? I'm not sure quite what he meant by that. I hope he didn't just mean we'll do exactly one round in a cage and one round in the boxing ring, because that'd be a pretty short pay-per-view main event. But if he means they're going to continually alternate between the two, it would have some sort of kind of curiosity value. It'd add to the undoubted saleability of the fight. But how would that work exactly? Like, if Dillian Whyte dropped Ngannou 3 times in a round, and then it got to just before the end of the round, then what? They're going to go back out and do MMA straight after the interval? That doesn't seem particularly fair. And vice versa as well. If Ngannou spent, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, however long they decide the rounds are, wrestling Whyte to the floor, or trying to tap him out of a choke or whatever it might be, and then they have a 1 minute interval or however long they decide on that, and then Whyte's got to go back out to popping his jab, getting up on his toes after being absolutely knackered. Ngannou's not known for his stamina, certainly as an MMA fighter. He's got a lot of fights over very quickly. Whyte's obviously got this massive stamina advantage, particularly in the boxing ring, because that will be a much longer fight. The longest MMA fights at championship level are only 25 minutes, not including the intervals. At boxing, you're talking, 3 12-minute rounds? That's like 36 minutes. That's already a lot longer. And there's a lot more, it's not a knock on MMA, but there are more opportunities, I think, to rest in the action in MMA fights. In boxing, you get the odd kind of hold and move each other around, a little bit of grappling that's not really allowed, and then the refs break them. But in MMA, you could be in kind of clinches and submission holds for a long time. And although there's obviously sustaining pain and suffering involved in that, you are resting from a cardio perspective sometimes as that's happening, especially if you're the fighter on top. So, 2 very different sports, and I'm not keen to see these crossover fights. I wasn't particularly excited about Mayweather-McGregor, and I'm not particularly excited about this. And these 2 guys, no disrespect to them, both incredibly good. I think Ngannou's ranked number 2 UFC contender at heavyweight. Dillian Whyte is definitely in the world top 5 for me in boxing in heavyweight. But I don't see the point of them mixing the sports to clash. They're not massive household names in either of their own domains. Maybe they're bringing them together. The idea is that they'll then go back to their respective sports with an increased name value, as long as neither of them get absolutely starched. But what will it prove? Whyte smashes Ngannou in the boxing ring, to be expected. Ngannou did a bit of boxing when he was a lot younger, but only even started that at age 22. And then quickly moved into MMA without really forging any sort of boxing career, certainly not as a pro. Or Dillian Whyte steps into the octagon, something where he's got no experience of a couple of the key disciplines, gets out-wrestled, out-grappled, whatever it is, or even knocked out because the striking positions are so different and the opportunities come from different angles. And what does that prove? That Dillian Whyte wasn't cut out to be a top-level, MMA fighter. I think Ngannou's ranked in the UFC pound-for-pound top 15. So it just proves that he deserves to be where he is, and Whyte deserves to be where he is. And crossing him over proves very little at all, except it might make both guys a lot of money. And I'm not against that. I'm just stating the fact that I'm not particularly interested in it, and I don't see what the point is. Like, no one cries out for... I'm trying to think of a good analogy, because I was going to say like a tennis player against a snooker player at one of their sports or something like that. But it's not quite the same. But okay, so no one cries out to see Usain Bolt, or whoever the top 100-metre runner is now. You can see I don't watch a lot of athletics, against Mo Farah in some sort of distance between the 2 that they're most versed in. Because although they're connected events, they're so far apart. The training's different and the actual competition's different. So for me, I'm not into it, but it'd be great to hear what other people think. Do you want to see Dillian Whyte against Francis Ngannou? Would you be willing to see Whyte further delay this long wait for the world title shot, to go in with a UFC fighter? Who do you think would come out on top, if it's in the ring, if it's in the octagon, if they did do a round of each alternating until the end of the fight? Let me know what you think, and I'll respond to some of the comments. I'll be back next week, Monday 4:30 for next Reflections, and this Thursday for FLEXpectations, same time. Always appreciate it, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.